One of the best ways to continually create fresh ideas is to continually alter your process. Today we're going to go over a sampling method using drum rack, which offers some interesting advantages over just using simpler. I want to focus on getting you started with this method without getting bogged down in the realm of possibilities so you can focus on just having fun. I'm using Ableton 11 here, but you'll have access to drum rack in Ableton 7 and above, I believe. Okay, so we're going to start by pulling in some audio from the browser that we want to sample onto a new audio track. Given the tempo of what we want to sample, let's adjust the global tempo to be the same as the loop tempo so we can get a consistent starting point, and this can always be changed once the drum rack has been created. Instead of cutting up the sample on the audio track and dragging each clip into a new pad on the drum rack, we can have Ableton do all this work for us. Let's select the sample and hit Shift Tab and then make sure that warp is on so that we have the option to right click and select Slice to New MIDI Track. Now Ableton is asking how we want it to slice or divide up the sample into the drum rack. So let's make each slice a quarter note long by selecting quarter note, and we'll keep it simple by sticking with the built-in slicing preset. We'll also leave preserve warp timing on, which makes it easy to change keys and tempos while keeping the length of the slices as a quarter note. So no sample will be too long and no sample will be too short. Once we hit OK, a drum rack has now been created. Using the parameters we selected earlier, Ableton divided up the sample and then placed each one onto a different pad. So let's head over down to the left here and activate Show Hide Devices so we can actually see the sampler on each pad. Now each pad corresponds to a MIDI note that can be triggered with a key on your keyboard. By default, slice 1 starts at C1, 2 octaves down from middle C, and when we press C1, the drum rack will trigger the sample that's on that pad. Go ahead and press M on your computer keyboard if you want to use that for your MIDI notes. Ableton sets up some macro knobs on the left for us to change different parameters that affect all the slices in the drum rack. So for example, slowing down the attack to 100 milliseconds changes the envelope of every slice in the drum rack to sound like this. By default, all samples are set to loop when you hold the key down. So I recommend turning off loop mode by setting the loop length to 0% here, because I found that there are very few situations where I like to have all the samples looping. Like most of the time you just hold the sample slightly longer than it needs to be and then you just end up catching the blip of the beginning again. You can change the macros to control whatever parameters you want and save your own presets, but I'll cover that separately. For now, let's just leave the rest of them alone so we can start laying some chops down here. I start by looping an 8-bar section, turning on the metronome, and then just recording. Otherwise, I'll use a drum loop if the metronome feels a little bit uninspiring, and it definitely can sometimes. So this is the part where you just start pressing keys and triggering things until you find something that you like. It's usually nice to make sure your slices don't overlap when you press 2 at the same time, so all you have to do is head over to the left side, click Show Hide Chain List here, and then click the little button that says I/O. And next we're going to hold down Shift and select all the slices in the drum rack, and then change the drop down under choke to be 1. So basically no samples in the same choke group can be triggered at the exact same time. And once you're happy with the loop that you've made, make sure Auto Select on the left side of the drum rack is deactivated so that it doesn't change which sampler is displayed every time a new pad is triggered. And one nice advantage to sampling this way using drum rack is that every single slice is its own sampler. So you can change the pitch, envelope, and filters and all kinds of stuff for each slice, which gives you a lot of different ways to vary the samples and then trigger them all in one place. Not only that, but drum rack also gives us the ability to put different MIDI and audio effects on each slice, which gives us even more options, which is awesome. Sampling using drum rack actually provides a lot more possibilities for creativity that expand beyond the scope of this video, but it's a great way to get started. And if you like this video, be sure to check out the playlist of other helpful videos on sampling that we created to help keep the creative juices flowing. Happy sampling, and we will see you in the next one.